you will feel this sense of guilt and shame. That guilt and shame is not yours. When they come into therapy, there will always be that thought in the back of their mind that what if I'm not accepted here as well? This profession has made me very nice as a person. I don't mean to boast.
I wanted to ask you, do you also struggle with mental health? Do you also take therapy?
Absolutely.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode, and I am extremely excited to have our guest today. Her name is Sarah Fernandes, and she is a therapist. Before we get into it, for those people who are new here, Feel Fuzzy is a mental health community that we are building that strives to make mental health care accessible, inclusive, and informative for everyone, irrespective of what your background is, what your sexual orientation is, what your gender expression is. And we hope that we are able to create this safe community for everyone. Now, coming to Sarah herself, she herself identifies as queer. She takes her own insights and learnings and uses it in her own therapy style, especially for her queer clients. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah. Wonderful to have you. Would you like to, let people who are watching right now just give yourself a little bit of a background about yourself?
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here, Mahima. Right, so my name is Sarah Fernandes. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm bisexual and I'm a counseling psychologist. I just graduated last year. When it comes to my approach in therapy, I pick up a lot of practices from the queer affirmative and the trauma informed lens. And I love narrative therapy, so I try to incorporate it whenever possible because I really think that when you are working with clients, it's important to understand their narrative, where it evolved from, and how much power they have over it. So that is mostly the outlook I choose when I'm seeing new clients.
That's really wonderful. Sarah is, in fact, going to be one of the therapists who's going to be listening with us. And as soon as we are live, you can, actually book Sarah if you resonate a lot with, what she has to say and her style of therapy. Sarah, I think it's so wonderful now that even within therapists, we are having more and more people from diverse backgrounds. I always feel like the insights you sort of bring in from diversity, that kind of things really play a huge role in the therapy we also provide, right? Many years ago when I started creating this list, I was actually, a lot of queer people were reaching out to me saying, oh, I am also struggling with my mental health. Do you know of a therapist who would not be transphobic or homophobic or any of those things? And this was back in 2017. And at that time, while we had slowly started talking about these things, it was still not as prevalent as it is now. I mean, and we have a long way to go, but at least we're more talking about it. And that was the reason I had started creating that list, that we need to have more queer affirmative therapists. We need to have more therapists who give feminist therapy, because it's so important for a person to feel understood and not be like, oh, I'm going to walk into a therapy session and they're just going to be homophobic, or they're just going to be a misogynist, and it's going to make my life really difficult. And I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
You're absolutely right, Maima. We do have a long way to go. I think the pandemic really opened up a lot of doors towards mental health. People started acknowledging the impact of grief, the impact of loneliness, isolation, depression. So these conversations started taking up stage. But especially from an Indian perspective, mental health has always been seen as something which is looked down upon. It's not given as much focus as physical health does. The whole analogy of, mental health is very important and it's like seeing a doctor for your physical health. Yes, but mental health is much more. A doctor will prescribe you some medicines and they will look at your current physical health, your anatomy, your biology, etc., and they'll help you understand how to feel temporarily better and then come back to your normal health. When it comes to therapy, it's a holistic process. You are uncovering wounds, you are opening doors to your past which you never even realized were traumatic. So The importance of intersectionality in this scenario is that when you live in a society for almost all your life, you can't remove it from your life. It is ingrained in you. When a queer client or a neurodivergent client or a client who has experienced a lot of hatred and oppression towards their life, when they come into therapy, there will always be that thought in the back of their mind that what if I'm not accepted here as well? We as therapists need to understand that when you've been oppressed for a very long time, you believe that your needs are not important. So when you come into therapy, it takes you a lot of time to open up. And when you do open up, if your therapist comes from a transphobic point of view or a homophobic point of view, it shatters you because it becomes a confirmation that, you know what, even a professional is seeing me in the same lens, so my needs are not important. It's very important to remember context plays a major role. Clients don't come to you with the hope of getting a temporary answer. They come to you to build resilience because they know that once they step out, they will be put in the same context. Society will still see them as oppressed. They will still, break their self esteem and hurt them. But they are working with it in therapy. Changing society is a very massive task, but building resilience in your own is a rebellious act in itself because you're showing society that you know what, you can continue being the way you are being to me, you can continue oppressing me, you can continue thinking I'm doing something wrong, but I know that I am fine, that I am right, that there is nothing abnormal in me, that I deserve to be treated as a human being.
Wow, that is made me a little emotional to hear.
Yeah.
I love that we have more therapists like you now, and you speak about it and you talk about it. It's incredibly important advocacy that you're doing because people take professionals a little more seriously. Even though my lived experience, and I am an expert on my lived experience, I am neurodivergent, and when I speak about it, still a joke for a lot of people in my life that I
Mm.
have ADHD, and it's like, oh yeah, whatever. It's, they don't get it, they don't understand it. I've sent them hundreds of reels on it. I have tried to show them some scientific papers on it. I'm diagnosed, I'm on medication for it. It's like you speaking up for it is sometimes not even enough. Sometimes the expert speaking on it is also not enough, but it's a little more legitimacy that they would give to you, which is why it is so important that you're doing that kind of advocacy, and you're doing it for neurodivergent people, you're doing it for queer people, you do it for other minorities. I believe you yourself belong to a religious minority as well as minority, and that sort of has shaped your worldview, your understanding of your clients
Mhm.
as well, right?
Mhm.
How
Right.
has that kind of shaped therapy for you?
About the religious minority aspect, I am a Catholic. Recently, in the past couple of years, there has been a trend which is being observed by a lot of minorities in India. This is a trend of fear. This is a trend of discrimination. They are terrified. My advocacy involves letting people do what they want, but providing support for people who are uncomfortable with it, who are scared from it. The people I know from the queer support group, their advocacy is out loud. They are out there fighting, they are protesting, they are doing all these things. And there is a difference in it for sure. And the major difference is that they are more vulnerable. They are out there in the public fighting the fight. When I see clients who are from religious minorities, the entire aspect of fear is always present. And they talk to me about their relationship with their religion, with their faith. And they tell me that I want to have a good relationship, but I'm constantly ostracized. I'm constantly hated on. I'm constantly discriminated against, and it's terrifying. In a certain way, I feel a lot of empathy towards them, right? When I came out, my entire religion, my entire relationship with Jesus and God and the church changed a lot. It took me a lot of relearning to get where I am. In one way, my experiences with my religion being a minority really helped me open up my mindset even more. It makes me research, it makes me stay up to touch with whatever is going on in society right now. And it reminds me that most of the time when people come to therapy, they don't want suggestions, they don't want advice, they don't want anything. They just wanted to listen because everybody around them is not listening. They are telling them that this is the right way to do it things. You're not doing it, so you're wrong. When they come to therapy, they don't want to be told they are wrong. They want to be told that I'm listening to you.
You're valid, like you
Exactly.
you are allowed to express yourself. And I'm speaking a little bit now from the point of view of someone who has been in therapy on and off for many years,
Mm-hmm.
it is sometimes a lot of it is not like seeking answers and solutions, because you kind of come up with your own after a while, because you feel safe enough to finally sit down with yourself and think about it, rather than just spending all of the time trying to convince people I deserve to be heard, or I'm valid. A lot of it just comes from being seen. And I think therapy is actually, I won't say therapy, I would say right therapy. There is a huge difference in going to a therapist and going to a correct therapist for you. If you end up do finding that therapist who makes you feel that you deserve to be listened to and heard, it makes a huge difference in terms of just you being able to process your own feelings, what trauma you've been going through. And we all have like different kinds of things we're dealing with, right? For some people it could be dealing discrimination because of their sexual orientation. For some it could be belonging to another religion. For some it could be belonging to another gender. For somebody it could be a socio-economic background. There's so many things, especially in a place like India, that plays such a huge role into our lived experience and our mental health. Like, people don't understand how important all of those things are when it comes to your mental health. It's just not like, hey, I'm depressed. But why, a lot of the reasons why you do end up getting depression or do end up facing mental health issues is because of all of these different factors. I wanted to know your thoughts on that. You've also met clients, and in your own life as well, you've seen like all of these factors playing a huge role in a person's mental health.
I've had a lot of clients who are religious minorities, sexual minorities. One thing I notice in their experiences is that the amount of hurt they've faced is such an extreme amount that they have internalized it. Some of them have sort of forced themselves to believe and accept that, you know what, maybe I'm not living the right way, maybe I'm doing something wrong. At the end of the day, it's important to remember, right? The more I tell someone something, the more they will internalize it. If there are 50 people telling that person that you've done something wrong, your sexuality is not valid, you are supposed to be heterosexual, or you're supposed to be with a guy, or only with a girl, or you can't feel like you are trapped in the wrong body. There are people who feel like they are trapped in the wrong body, and it's suffocating. There are people who feel that they want to be with a woman, but they're forced to be with men, and that's suffocating. There are these things which are happening in society on a realistic level. You can't shove it under the carpet and expect people to forget about it. The victims and survivors of this homophobia, this queerphobia, this transphobia, they will continue living. And while they are living, their stories will be with them. In therapy, we are re-navigating those stories and helping your clients have more power over the narrative. We are helping them believe better things about themselves. We are helping them see the strengths that they hold. It's important for us to acknowledge and understand the fact that when society expects you to behave a particular way, to be accepted, anything different you do, you will feel this sense of guilt and shame. That guilt and shame is not yours, it's society's. It's your parents. It's your friends who aren't supporting you. It's the culture, it's the tradition, the religion. You have been forced to accept that guilt and shame on a platter served with knives and hurt and insulting words. But that is not your fault. You are a human being. You have a sexuality. You have a gender identity. You have not failed society. Society has failed you. You just want to have a life where you feel accepted. It's very unfortunate that the only space you feel accepted is in the therapy room. In the therapy room, the process that we undertake, right? You feel a sense of acceptance within your body, within your mind, within your soul. The end goal in therapy, especially when we're working with an intersectional lens, with a feminist lens, is to help clients understand that society may not be able to accept you, but that is their problem.
Hmm. You moving the guilt from within themselves to the system that is making them feel that way.
Absolutely. We just need to ensure that the client learns to accept themselves. Yeah, at the end of the day, you don't have to live with society, you have to live with yourself.
That's a very powerful tool. I think therapists really should be more proud of the fact that they have this tool to, empower people to feel good within their bodies and minds. It's so critically important, because unfortunately we live in a world where it's not ideal. There's so many things that will make you feel small or will make you feel wrong. And these are the things and the community that we build that sort of builds that resilience within us to keep going.
Hmm.
That brings me to the question, how did you decide to become a therapist?
I would like to give a lot of responsibility and credit to my bachelor's college, St. Xavier's in Mumbai. St. Xavier's opened up my eyes and my ears and my heart to understanding conversations from a lens of research, a lens of understanding, and a lens of acceptance. When I was in St. Xavier's, I learned a lot of things about my own childhood, which were actually characterized and categorized as emotional abuse. I never understood it because no one taught me that there are words you can use to describe this emotion, that there are things which shouldn't have happened with you as a child, that there are things which weren't your fault. During COVID, when my parents were getting a divorce, and my grandmother, she was in her last year of cancer and she passed away that year, it really opened up my mind to the fact that there is a lot of pain in people. And there is no way to express that pain because you aren't allowed to express pain. We force our children, men, women, kids, whoever, to be strong, to be, mardban, etc. We force them to not accept their vulnerability. And in doing this, they go into denial. They feel sad, they feel depressed. And they grow up thinking that if I couldn't express my needs, nobody else in my family should be able to express theirs. And then they behave that way with their children, and the circle goes on. The reason I became a therapist is because when I started being a participant in conversations around trauma, around sexual abuse, around domestic violence, I realized that it is happening rampantly. No one is stopping it. It's a world which keeps blaming the victim. In a world like this, having someone who tells you that your story, your experience is extremely sad, and I'm sorry it happened, but you deserve a better life. We will heal that and we will do it together. That's why I became a therapist, so I could help people who had similar childhood experiences like me, who had a difficult life growing up. I could help them understand that their narratives, their experiences, their emotions are valid and they deserve to have an outlet. They deserve to be acknowledged and affirmed, and they deserve to have a life which is not only about the abuse they faced, but also about how they survived that abuse, about the power they have in them. Yeah, that.
It is really wonderful. You deserve a life after the trauma, and you will deserve a life where you recognize your own power and all of the things that make you you, not just all the bad things that have happened to you. That is wonderful way to sort of look at therapy also, and a way to rewrite your own life's narrative as well. I mean, we've all faced traumas of different kinds, of different severity. Everybody has things in life that have really affected them, and to sort of then get these tools by therapists like you to sort of reframe the way we look at ourselves and our lives could be such a powerful thing. That's where I feel like therapy can be so transformational when it's done by the right kind of people. It is really important for me also that Feel Fuzzy has different kinds of therapists from different diverse backgrounds. I have been so insistent and passionate about ensuring that we have different kinds of representations in just our therapists also. Let's say I open the website and I see all of these therapists available. Maybe I see myself in one of them.
Hmm.
And I feel like, you know what? Maybe they'll understand me more.
Hmm.
It is a way for you to feel slightly more safer, in fact, that
Absolutely.
oh, they're queer themselves.
Hmm.
Oh, I know for a fact that they'll give me safe space.
Hmm.
Or it could be another thing, or they're neurodivergent. Not to say that a therapist cannot give therapy to everyone, of course they can. The right kind of therapist will give themselves the tool to understand their client, even if it's not their exact lived experience. But it's good to have that option, it's good to have that choice. It's good for the client to feel like if I wanted to, I could have the choice to go with a certain person or somebody else. I wanted to now get into a little bit of like more personal questions about you. How has your life sort of changed after getting into therapy, what kind of impact has it had on you, seeing different kinds of clients, etc.?
If I'm being extremely honest with you, I remember a time in my life when I was quite judgmental and I was quite rigid in my beliefs, right? In terms of the fact that if things are not done my way, I'll be super pissed about it. Fortunately, again, Xavier's and IIPR, where I did my masters, have really opened me up and helped me understand that things can't always go your way, and that is okay. I feel like before entering the field, I was extremely with myself. I was focused solely on things that surrounded me, and I wasn't very well informed about what was going on around me in the whole world. I feel that therapy as a profession requires you to do a lot of research. It requires you to open up all books, open up websites, open up articles, learn about people's experiences, and learn about the fact that this is happening in the world out there. This profession has made me much more knowledgeable about what is going on in the world right now. That's one thing. The second thing is this profession has made me very nice as a person. I don't mean to boast. It's instilled in me values of kindness and patience and comfort, right? It's taught me that sometimes it doesn't matter if you don't know where the other person is and exactly from. It doesn't even matter if you can't relate to them. Sometimes just being there is enough. So it's taught me to be much more kinder and forgiving towards people. In doing that, it's helped me heal my own trauma, get closure over a lot of experiences which I did not require closure from, as is what I thought. Right? I shoved them so deep inside me. And I was like, I'm not going to open this door ever. But I opened it. And the person who's come out of that door after healing her trauma is someone who is more open minded, who is more kinder, who is more patient with people. I think this is like the best profession, and I think this is the best choice I've ever taken in my life to work in a field which is as giving and as generous as therapy.
Wow, that's incredible. Like the way you've spoken about it. I think there's a lesson here for everyone is that if you're willing to give people a chance to just speak to you and just listen patiently and listen generously, it will force you to sort of see within yourself and just become a better human being. Like,
Absolutely.
so great to know that therapy, while it really positively impacts the client, it is actually also making a therapist feel better about themselves and like healing certain parts of themselves as well. So therapy goes both ways in a fact that it is can be a positive experience for both the people giving therapy and receiving therapy. Getting into a little bit now more about your therapy as well, while you give sessions to your therapist, you were talking about that you come from a very trauma informed queer affirmative lens, intersectional lens of looking at things.
Mhm.
Can you tell us how that looks like practically in sessions? How that sort of comes into practice when you're talking to a client?
I think when it comes to trauma informed sessions, a lot of psychoeducation is involved. I think it's very important to understand the intersection of language, the entire aspect of she was sexually assaulted. Someone sexually assaulted her. Don't blame the victim. By saying she was sexually assaulted, you are implying that she did something which made her get sexually assaulted, which is obviously not the case. So, whenever I have clients in a sessions who have had extreme trauma, one thing which will come up is something along the lines of maybe it's my fault that this person did XYZ to me. I should have been better. You could be doing something wrong doesn't mean you're supposed to be beaten up for it. Doesn't mean you're supposed to be abused for it. That's not how punishment works. Actually, punishment, there's lots of research showing punishment doesn't work. It just terrifies the person even more. It's not something which makes them learn. A lot of parents sort of raise their children saying, "Oh, spare the rod, spoil the child." Have you tried anything other than the rod? How will you know? How would you know? You've not been open to any other methods like talking to your child, understanding where they are coming from. Your immediate response is, just give him a whack on his head or something like that. How do you think this child is going to grow up? He's going to be terrified of authority figures. He'll be scared at office. He'll constantly undermine himself. Trauma informed therapy, the practices which we talk about, it's a very psychoeducational, language oriented approach that I pick up, right? To understand what words does the client use to describe their trauma. Do they understand that it was trauma? Society has forced us to be blinded to things which actually hurt us. We aren't allowed to speak up against our parents. We aren't allowed to disrespect people who disrespected us. We are expected to respect our elders, to obey them, not question them. We are taught that men are, superior. These principles, what they do is they minimize the impact of your trauma that you are experiencing. They make you believe that patriarchy is normal. Men beating up their wives is normal. It's not normal. It is not healthy. It is not right. It is not fair. When clients come into therapy and they tell me about this happened with me, my first thing is, let's talk about how that impacted you. Let's understand that it was not your fault. Even आपने अगर गलती की हो, you don't deserve such a big repercussion of it.
Nobody deserves abuse. You cannot earn abuse. It's not something you did to yourself, it is something they did to you.
Trying to help clients understand that you may have done XYZ and it may have impacted your perpetrator. ठीक है, you made a mistake. But the consequence of that mistake, which was shown on you, was not fair. It was not justified. So, helping your client step out of that I must have done something wrong frame is the first thing which helps them understand and accept the trauma they faced, the abuse they faced, and heal from
I've talked about it quite a bit. Is in India,
it.
beating children is so normalized, right? Let's say you won't publicly go and admit that I've beaten up my wife because it's still like at some point he'll tell you they're illegal, you can't do it, you'll lose your job, or I don't know, men don't face much consequences, but still it's not something that you'll proudly go and talk about, no. But it is completely normal to talk about beating your children. Now, beating your wife or your spouse is obviously horribly wrong. In no way it can ever be justified, no matter how, whatever justification people give. But beating children somehow is even worse for me because they're children with absolutely no powers,
Absolutely.
no rights, no agency. The world doesn't take them seriously. They're 7, 8 years old, they're 10 years old, and they're getting beaten by their parents. And the best part is the whole society is in agreement. It's fine, yaar. दो चार थप्पड़ नहीं मारोगे तो वो तो बिगड़ जाएगा. You know, we have normalized domestic violence against our children in India to a point where you can make jokes about it, make memes about it, make reels about it, tell funny anecdotes during family reunions about it, and it is 100% accepted. That has severe consequences on a child's mental health growing up, and then once they're grown up, are they continuing then that cycle of abuse? I know it's slightly off topic. You were talking about trauma informed therapy, but it was just something that I was thinking about.
But I think I've also read up on conversations about locker room chats or something.
Boys, yeah, boys
Yes,
locker room chats.
right. And there is so much of normalization towards horrible treatment of women, horrible treatment of kids. It's become like a, oh, I brushed my teeth today. Yeah, while doing that, I also just sort of slapped my wife a little around. That's not. It's not a normal thing.
Convinced my girlfriend to sleep with me. I mean, if you have to convince someone,
That's not consent, right? It's seen like a power trip, unfortunately, at this point.
I am a dude. I'm such a cool dude.
Yes, exactly. Like, you know what? You know what I did over the weekend? It's not a good thing to boast about. You are harming someone else for a very long time of their life. They will remember what happened to them, what you did to them, but you're boasting about it?
It's a permanent wound
Definitely.
for them, and it's some bragging rights for you. And I think it's normalized in Indian culture as well in terms of men being emotionally and sometimes physically abusive towards their wives.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about like somebody who like beats their wives every day for 30 minutes or whatever. I'm talking about the casual violence that is just normal. how are we not right now running after that man to take him to the police station? Why are you sitting comfortably and telling it to me right now? Is so deeply shocking for me. Uh, but it's normalized, right? And if women speak up, they're breaking the marriages, they're breaking the families.
The victim is blamed for being abused. That's not how it works. The abuser should be blamed for abusing the victim. She must have done something to entice him. She must have, she provoked him.
I think we are, passing down generational cycles of abuse to our kids. It's been going on for years. We are perpetrating it. We pass it down to our kids. They pass it down to their kids.
Mhm.
And I'm talking in a generalized way. I'm not talking about specific people or specific families, but just in general, to see it this normalized
Absolutely.
is really heartbreaking, which is again why the role of therapy is so important, because it takes one person to break that cycle of abuse.
Hmm.
Like it can stop with you, right? Once it stops with you and you don't pass it on to your own family, to your own kids, to your own spouse, to your own near and dear ones, and that's an entire generation of families you've saved from that cycle of violence. Because and and therapy can do that for you, both for the person who faces it, and I think for the rare few may who may realize they have done something horrible and take responsibility for it. While I do feel most of the people who end up going to therapy are victims and survivors and perpetrators, usually the ones who don't take therapy, the rare few who do and are serious about it and then work in rehabilitation, I think that can be a powerful tool as well. Do you have like an opinion on that? Like, do you feel like rehabilitation can work for these kind of people who do perpetrate that kind of violence?
To a certain extent, I feel that rehabilitation is only helpful if the person being rehabilitated is sensitized to what they did is wrong. When it comes to clinical disorders, right, like substance abuse, for example, rehabilitation becomes the only way to actually help the person. When it comes to rehabilitation of people who are physically violent, who are sexually violent, who are rapists, who are pedophiles, it's a very long process, first of all, right? Because they have inbuilt that into their personality. They have accepted, ki, you know what, I do this. For me, it's nothing wrong. So I'm going to continue doing it. Helping them realize ki this action is not hurting you, but it's impacting so many others. They won't accept it initially. They won't say, you know what, you're right. What I've done is wrong. Obviously not, right? There is a power dynamics over there, right? It's a source of supply for the person who is perpetrating. When it comes to educating them, it's a process which requires a lot of patience, a lot of informative education, and a lot of not just rehabilitation but also restoration. Society mein people have rights and people need to be respected. You've spent x number of your life, x number of years in your life not respecting people. We need to restore that sense of respect in you so you can learn to respect others. So does rehabilitation work? Definitely, but the person should want to be rehabilitated. If it doesn't come from them, it's of no use. You can't force a person.
I think the priority should always be to make sure that the person who's been hurt or traumatized be taken care of. If we were to put this kind of energies
Mhm.
and mental health care, I would say communities or education in preventative kind of care, right? If we had that as a part of education growing up in schools, in colleges, in the various ways that we when we learn, and we develop our minds,
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of it could be prevented
Mhm.
if
Absolutely.
these were the teachings that we got in schools and colleges, rather than then after you have given so much trauma to people or the people have been traumatized, then they are taking therapy and you don't care, or some of you may be rehabilitated or not.
Mhm.
um, and a large majority of it could have been preventative, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like that kind of preventative mental health community building care? education, like all of those things.
We need to talk about mental health everywhere, yeah. Because schools, colleges, families, hospitals, churches, mosques, everywhere. It shouldn't be something which is such a taboo, you know. The only way we will understand that there are certain things we shouldn't do to others, if we understand what can we do to them, what can we actually do to other people. We can respect them, we can talk politely, we can respect their boundaries, their consent. If you're not told what you can do, you will surely do what you can't do, what you shouldn't be doing, because you won't know anything else. We talk a lot about sex education in schools, right? Now it's become like a big, talk of the town, right? कि हाँ उसको normalize करना चाहिए, sex education होना चाहिए schools में. And we talk about value education, but nowhere do we talk about psycho education. Nowhere do we talk about the fact that you're living in a society, you're living with other people. You need to respect them. Yeah. Man is a social animal. Human beings are social animals. But are we animals? Do we have to continue being animals? Can't we learn basic respect? Can't we learn about the rights people have and choose to respect those rights? Patriarchy, racism, white supremacy, all these things will continue being there. But it takes one person to change it. You need to be that one person. I think the entire aspect of mental health, the entire aspect of basic human decency needs to be taught, properly taught, everywhere. These conversations may be uncomfortable initially, right? Like, why are we talking about um, how do you behave around women? How do you, not mansplain? Why are we talking about these things? We're talking about these things because they happen. Every day, some woman is being sent unsolicited nudes. Some young boy is being exposed to porn from, from the neighborhood uncle or auntie or whoever. We're talking about it because it's happening. You have to unveil it. You have to tell people कि ये हो रहा है.
The society thinks that if we talk about it, it happens because we talk about it, rather than the very opposite of it.
Exactly.
People are afraid of talking about it to their kids.
Definitely.
Teachers are afraid of talking about it to their students. The community doesn't talk about it much because it's like, if we just ignore it, if we don't talk about it, it won't happen.
ऐसा
But
नहीं
the
होता है.
the whole point is that a kid, if they're able to learn about it in a safe environment, and then have awareness about all of these different things, they will take better decisions
Hmm.
because they have the information to take those decisions, rather than blindly going through life learning things from porn, learning things from men like Andrew Tate, and then sort of wreaking havoc into the world. I wanted to ask you, is there something that you would like to let new therapists know, like people starting in the field, sort of like give them like a little bit of advice, like how they can, navigate this industry?
I think when we as therapists enter the field, we have a lot of, what, I'm going to help every single person that I actually can. Like, full on, I'm going to enter the field. I'm going to take so many clients. I'm going to work 24/7 and I'm going to make the world a better place. You will make the world a better place even with just one client. You will make the world a better place even by just talking to your friend and telling them that mental help is available. Please don't overburden yourself. Don't take up 7, 8 trauma cases together. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't burn out. Because you can only provide services to your clients on the basis of how well your own mental health is. You are not Superman, Superwoman, superhuman. You are not. You are a human being. You're going to have bad days. You are going to have episodes of sadness. You are going to feel like, you know what, maybe just don't want to see clients today. I'm tired. All of it is fine. You don't have to force yourself to go to work every day and see clients. You don't have to force yourself because there are other therapists available as well. Remember to make boundaries, right? Remember to have a proper work life balance. Set timings when your clients can contact you. Tell them that beyond this time, I may not be accessible. So, here are some helplines you can speak to in case there's an emergency. Be clear and upfront with your clients to help them understand that you're a professional. You cannot be their friend. That is not how therapy works. Can you joke about things with clients in session? Absolutely. Can you send them a reel that makes you think about something they discussed in therapy with you if your client allows you to do? Sure. But you are not a 24/7 access point for them, because then you are not being a therapist. You're not being a human being, rather. You're being a therapist 24/7, which is not fair to you, because you are a child, you are a partner, you are a friend, you are so many things beyond a therapist as well. So I think it's important to maintain self care practices, to set boundaries, and to remind yourself that you don't have to single handedly change the whole world. You have to do only how much you can do. And nobody is going to blame you for doing less or more, because there isn't a less. Every day is a day for you to try something, to change someone's perspective about themselves. But that doesn't mean you do it every single day. Take breaks, take a vacation, sleep properly, talk to your friends. Ensure that you are living as a human being as well. Once I've entered the field of therapy, I was everyone's therapist, man. Like anyone would come and tell me, Sarah, I had a really bad day. Can I vent? And I was like, yeah, yeah. Come, you vent. You tell me how you're doing. I was tired very soon. Remind yourself ki you can put down that therapist cap.
That's a good piece of advice, and I think it applies to a lot of people beyond therapists also, that we kind of need to have a little bit of boundaries, right, in between our professional and personal lives,
Definitely.
because it helps us be better people. Like if we are so burned out, so exhausted, so annoyed and irritated, we are not giving the best version of ourselves to people in our lives, whether that's in our profession or whether that's even in our personal lives.
Precisely, yes.
So, really good tip for mental health professionals.
Mm.
Please take care of yourself as well, and so that you can give better care to people who need you, right? I wanted to ask you, do you also struggle with mental health? Do you also take therapy?
Absolutely. I've been taking therapy on and off since I was in the first year of bachelor's, for around 3, 4 years now. I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder a couple of months ago, and I do also have episodes of trichotillomania, which is hair pulling disorder, and episodes of panic disorder as well. This all stems from the fact that I was exposed to a lot of abuse while growing up. Therapy for therapists is the most important thing therapists can do for themselves. It is like get it tattooed if you want. It's that true. Therapy for therapists is extremely important for any mental health professional for that matter, because you go in and out every single day talking to people about things which happen to them, which have hurt them for their whole life. They are telling you all that stuff. That stuff can sometimes remind you of things you experienced, things you did not allow to be, showed to people, things you did not heal, you did not get closure from. It is only fair to you if you learn from therapy as well. If you go to therapy, if you speak to, maybe once a week sessions, etc., it's the only way you will remind yourself ki even your needs as a therapist are important.
So, being in therapy for you, did that really help your mental health as well, and then helped you be a better therapist in turn?
Definitely. I think that, being in therapy has really helped me understand the entire aspect of setting boundaries. I'm a bit of a people pleaser. So when I just started seeing clients, I would not be able to end the session at 50 minutes. I'd have sessions going for 2 hours. It would be extremely exhausting. I wasn't prepared for those sessions to be that long, and I did not know how to tell the client that our time is over. Being in therapy has helped me understand that there is no guilt that I should be feeling if I tell my client that we have booked a 50-minute session, 50 minutes are over, I'll see you next week. It's not a bad thing for me to do. But most importantly, I also feel that therapy has helped me, not just as a professional, but also as a human being, heal from a lot of wounds which I repressed for a very long time. Sometimes when you're talking to a client and they're talking about something that they experienced in their life which really hurt them, which really impacted them, sometimes you just realize that, I actually shared a similar experience. It just suddenly came up to me right now that this happened with me as well. Can you tell your client that, I understand where you're coming from, and a similar thing happened to me. It was very hurtful. You can tell them that. Self disclosure in therapy as therapists is good in certain situations. But you can't vent to your client, right? You need to have a therapist, because if you went to your parents, if you went to your friends, will they listen to you? Sometimes. But will they give you advice? Yes. They will give you advice when you are actually looking for someone to just vent to, someone to just talk to, someone to tell you that this happened with you as well. And it was sad that it happened with you. You're healing from it. I think it's really made me a better person in terms of the fact that it's helped me come face to face with my own trauma as well. Right? It's given me the strength to face it and not be scared of it.
Really, we could all benefit from taking therapy, even if we are therapists.
Definitely.
Um, Thank you, Sarah, so much. I think this was one of the most interesting, insightful, empowering conversations I've had. We were able to talk about so many different things, and I think it's going to be really, really helpful for people who watch this podcast to understand therapy a little bit more, to understand intersectionality a little bit more, to understand so many different things that go into it, and how even therapists need self care and therapy, how important it is, as a tool.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Sarah. Do you have any closing remarks or anything that you would like to say?
I'd just like to sort of say that help is available here. If you can't pay a high amount of money for therapy, pro bono therapy is available. Sliding scales are available. If you are worried about, oh, what will it be like, sort of opening up to someone who's a stranger, it's at your own pace. Your therapist is not going to force you to open up to them. You have a lot of power in therapy. It's important for you to accept that your needs are important, your needs are valuable, your concerns are valid, and you don't have to justify it to someone else. Whenever you feel worried, whenever you feel anxious, whenever you feel suicidal, whenever you feel that, I just want to talk to someone, just talk to them properly, like, just be heard. Help is available. I think it's important that we allow ourselves to ask for help. Doesn't make us any less strong. It actually makes us more strong.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Um, with that, we'll wrap up the podcast episode. And like Sarah said, help is available on Feel Fuzzy. We have a lot of diverse therapists who provide affirmative, inclusive mental health care across all price points. And we will be releasing pro bono and sliding scale slots as well for people who are in need of therapy but need more financial sort of support in terms of accessing therapy. I get it, we get it, and we are going to do as much as we can to make sure that you can access that therapy. So
Absolutely.
thank you, Sarah, for being on the podcast,
Thank
and
you so
thank you
much
for
for having
everyone
me.
tuning in.
Thank you.